I would like to call to order the regular meeting of the Newport News School Board for Tuesday, August 16, 2022. On behalf of the members of the school board and the superintendent, I welcome each of you watching. A quorum is present to transact the business of the school division. We will begin tonight's meeting with the invocation and pledge to the flag. Here to do the honors is Michelle Nordine, President, Newport News Council of PTAs. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you, nervous speaker. Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the board, and Dr. Parker. I am honored to give the invocation and lead the Pledge of Allegiance. I would like to share a poem that I found online that shows how parents and teachers working together shapes a child's education. Unity. I dreamt I stood in a studio and watched two sculptures there. The clay they used was a young child's mind, and they fashioned it with care. One was a teacher. The tools he used were books, music, and art. One a parent with a guiding hand, and a gentle, loving heart. Day after day, the teacher toiled with a touch that was deft and sure, while the parent labored by his side and polished and smoothed it over. And when at last their work was done, they were proud of what they had wrought, for the things they had molded into the child could neither be sold nor bought. And each agreed they would have failed if each had worked alone. For behind the parent stood the school, and behind the teacher, the home. Author unknown. At this time, would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. The next item on tonight's agenda is school board recognition. So Dr. Parker.
Excellent.
Good evening. Oh, thank you. I have the honor of presenting this month's school board recognitions. Each year, the Virginia School Boards Association invites local school boards to nominate businesses and organizations to the VSBA Business Honor Roll. Newport News Public Schools has numerous partners that support education. However, this year, 3 organizations stood out. To select the 2022 Business Honor Roll nominees, the school board and administration looked at organizations that have distinguished themselves in an extra special way this year or over the course of many years. This year, the school board voted to name Community Nights, Anthem Health Keepers Plus, and the Newsom Bailey Project to the 2022 VSBA Business Honor Roll in recognition of their ongoing commitment to Newport News Public Schools. Anthem Health Keepers Plus and the Newsom Bailey Project were honored at a previous meeting. But tonight, we are excited and pleased to honor the Community Nights. We've invited the co-founders of the Community Nights to be present with us this evening. Please join us in thanking and welcoming Jennifer Brown, Chief Executive Officer. Ms. Brown. And Teresa Mitchner, Chief Financial Officer. Ms. Mitchner. The Community Nights organization, represented here with Ms. Brown and Ms. Mitchner, are receiving a resolution of recognition from the school board and a certificate of recognition from the Virginia School Boards Association. The resolution reads, in part, Newport News School Board Resolution of Recognition naming Community Nights to the 2022 Virginia School Boards Association Business Honor Roll. Whereas public schools and local businesses and organizations are an integral part of the community, and whereas many local businesses and organizations play a critical role in supporting our schools, and whereas the economic health of our community, state, and nation depends on a strong public school system, and whereas collaboration between local public schools and local businesses and organizations strengthens schools and the business community alike by providing a well-trained and highly educated workforce. And whereas an excellent public school system is vital to the quality of life in this community and fundamental to preserving a strong democratic society now and in the future. And whereas Community Nights, a nonprofit organization based in Newport News, supports public schools and local nonprofit organizations to address community needs collaboratively. And whereas the dedicated staff and volunteers of Community Nights are helping to cultivate a vibrant, interconnected community by investing in it through a continuous loop of volunteerism and community-driven fundraising. And whereas Community Nights, as of the spring 2022, had awarded 817 grants worth a total of $1.6 million to 199 public schools and nonprofit organizations, with much of that amount going to support students, families, and staff in Newport News Public Schools. Whereas the Virginia School Boards Association established a business honor roll to recognize local businesses and organizations that play a key role in supporting our communities and our local schools. Now therefore be it resolved that the Newport News School Board place Community Nights on the statewide Virginia School Boards Association Business Honor Roll, calling attention to its ongoing commitment to Newport News Public Schools and the students we serve. Be it further resolved, a copy of this resolution be spread across the minutes of this meeting for all to acknowledge, and it is signed by all the members of the school board and the superintendent. Ladies, on behalf of the entire school division, we thank you for your service and your dedication to Newport News Public Schools, our community, and our students.
All right.
We have an additional recognition this evening that is a bit of a surprise. So I'm going to ask all the members of the school board, would you please come down front? Thank you. Thank you. So our next recognition this evening is an acknowledgement of service and appreciation for Douglas Brown.
Yay.
He's being presented with the resolution, and it reads, the Newport News School Board Resolution of Recognition and Appreciation presented to Douglas C. Brown in honor of dedicated service as school board chairman July 1, 2020 through June 30, 2022. Whereas the Newport News School Board, a duly elected body, is charged with establishing and maintaining a system of public schools within the city of Newport News. And whereas the Newport News School Board's operational goals are to develop policies which promote student achievement and the wise management of financial resources. And whereas the members of the Newport News School Board hold an office of shared power and responsibility, guided by a chairman who presides over meetings of the board. And whereas Douglas Brown was unanimously voted chairman of the school board on July 1, 2020, during the school board organizational meeting, and was subsequently voted to a second one-year term as chairman during the July 1, 2021 organizational meeting. And whereas Mr. Brown guided the school board during the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic, while continuing to ensure public access and input during school board meetings. Whereas Mr. Brown provided sage advice and support as Newport News Public Schools prioritized the health and safety of students and staff by adhering to COVID-19 mitigation best practices, implementing a one-to-one device rollout to support continued teaching and learning, launching Meals to Go service to ensure all families had access to nutritious meals, and reassigning employees to other duties as needed to ensure continued employment for all employees during the pandemic. Whereas Mr. Brown guided the school board through the Master Board Professional Development process, resulting in the school board earning designation as the Virginia School Boards Association Master Board, only the second school governance team in Virginia to earn such recognition. Whereas Chairman Douglas Brown devoted himself to furthering the mission of ensuring that all students graduate college, career, and citizen ready. And whereas the Newport News School Board established I jumped ahead. Now therefore, be it resolved that the Newport News School Board acknowledges and extends its gratitude to Douglas C. Brown for his dedicated leadership and service as chairman of the Newport News School Board from July 1, 2020 to June 30, 2022. And be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be spread across the minutes. And the resolution is signed by all of the members of the school board and the superintendent in honor of your service. Again, we thank the community Knights, and we thank Mr. Brown for his service to the school division. At this time, we'll take a 6-minute break so that our honorees and their families may leave if they choose to do so. During this time, our viewing audience will have the opportunity to view this month's School Board Spotlight. So we'll stand in recess for about 6 minutes. Thank you.
For the first time in Newport News Public Schools, elementary students had the opportunity to showcase their talents on the basketball court. Normally reserved for middle and high school student athletes, 4 elementary schools participated in the very first Elementary Basketball Invitational at Newsom Park Elementary before summer break began. Co-ed student teams from Dutrow, Hydenwood, Newsom Park, and Riverside Elementary Schools played in a single elimination bracket-style invitational to ultimately crown a winning squad for the whole city. In the opening round, Hydenwood defeated Newsom Park's home team, while Dutrow, whose team was playing their very first game, won a well-played game against Riverside's talented players. Before the tournament final, Woodside's varsity basketball coach, Stefan Welsh, spoke to all of the young players about working hard every day, both on the court and in the classroom, to achieve their life's dreams. In the championship round, Dutrow and Hydenwood played hard through the final minutes, with Dutrow narrowly winning the first citywide tournament. At each school, coaches spent the season focused on building foundational skills and teamwork, while emphasizing important character traits that carry over into all aspects of life. Student athletes also had to complete their schoolwork on time, have excellent attendance, and no discipline referrals to continue playing. While winning was on the forefront of every young player's mind, the memorable experiences gained and life lessons learned were clearly more important than the final score. Newport News Public Schools has started a new annual tradition by formally recognizing the administrators that lead our schools. Every day, our principals, along with assistant principals and administrative assistants, set high standards through their multifaceted jobs by caring for students, promoting inclusive learning environments, empowering their teaching staff, and offering genuine support to parents. Superintendent Dr. George Parker wanted to acknowledge our dedicated school administrators. So the school leadership team organized and hosted an NNPS leadership reception at Kiln Creek Golf Club and Resort. School Board Chairman Douglas Brown and Vice Chairman Lisa Surley's Law offered their heartfelt words of thanks to all of the school administrators who have kept our schools on track, especially through the difficult years navigating a global pandemic. Dr. Parker announced the winning principals and assistant principals representing all 3 grade levels. The Elementary School Assistant Principal of the Year is Sanford's Suzanne Ramirez, based on her commitment to building a positive school culture that has resulted in strong student-teacher relationships and reduced discipline infractions. The Elementary School Principal of the Year is Sedgefield's Jackie Barber, who has brought her dynamic vision to life, helping to positively change the school's culture while increasing student engagement, along with reading and math test scores. At the middle school level, the Assistant Principal of the Year is Gildersleeve's Dr. Victor Gleesow, who has a long history of sustaining a wonderful middle school experience for students by creatively celebrating academic success and creating opportunities for student leadership. The Middle School Principal of the Year is Lisa Gatz-Daniel, who strives to make Hines a school where the heart is by personally connecting with students and families to promote student achievement while also dramatically decreasing discipline referrals by 50%. Among our high schools, the Assistant Principal of the Year is Terry Fenner, a dedicated leader and mentor who is fully committed to connecting with the students at Heritage by building lasting relationships that help Haynes navigate school and life. And the high school Principal of the Year is Warwick's Dr. Kelly Mason, who developed creative solutions for all students to succeed, while building solid relationships with her staff through strong communication. Since these dynamic leaders have been formally recognized, they can now be nominated for state awards to be honored among the best educators across the Commonwealth. Students across Newport News Public Schools are emerging as future global leaders. This coming school year, juniors and seniors at all 6 high schools will receive immersive training and participate in comprehensive professional development through Emerging Leaders, a new youth development initiative. For 122 upperclassmen, the journey started last school year. In early June, select students were invited to a day of exploration and training at James River Country Club with school leaders and dynamic community partners. The students were selected based on their demonstrated leadership potential, with many candidates having already participated in established student empowerment programs such as Bloom, Flourish, and Rise. The emerging leader candidates spent time learning about the new experience and what would be expected of them in terms of serving in their schools, volunteering their time and talents to help others, and improving their community through service projects. During a networking lunch, students were joined at each table by elected officials, school administrators, and community leaders who shared their own life experiences and fielded questions from the high school students about educational and career ambitions. Since many business deals are sealed over a game of golf, some candidates spent time with golf pros perfecting their short game and honing their networking skills. Other candidates partnered with school board members and educational leaders to tackle a team-based challenge activity that required planning, creative thinking, and problem solving. As emerging leaders is just getting started, it's exciting to see what the future holds for these highly motivated and driven students.
Dr. Parker.
I hope you enjoyed this month's School Board Spotlight. During our regular meetings, we provide time for the public to address the school board. These opportunities are scheduled in the early part of our agenda and also towards the end of the meeting. The school board recognizes that during the pandemic, some members of the public may not be able to join us in person. As advertised, citizens may submit comments via a web form, email, or voicemail up to 30 minutes prior to our meeting time to be included in the official meeting record. For those of you joining us in person, the board considers this an opportunity to listen to your comments. Please understand we will consider your concerns. We ask that you comply with our 3-minute time limit. As you begin your comments, a green light will come on, a yellow light signals that you have 30 seconds remaining, and a red light and beep indicates your time is up. Do we have any comment cards?
We do not.
Okay, thank you.
Clap. That's great.
Wow.
So moving right along, we will now move on to Section 3, the consent agenda, which includes 3.01, minutes from the special meeting, June 7th, 2022, 3.02, minutes from the special closed session on June 7th, 2022, 3.03, minutes from the work session on June 21st, 2022, 3.04, minutes from the regular meeting on June 21st, 2022, 3.05, minutes from the special closed meeting on June 21, 2022, 3.06, organizational meeting on July 1, 2022, 3.07, financial reports including the revenue report for July 2022, the expense report for July 2022, 3.08, the personnel report, and 3.09, Hampton Road Sanitation District easement, 3.10, Virginia Department of Education authorization of signature in absence of Division Superintendent, 3.11, BDOE authorization of signature in absence of Division Superintendent, Enterprise Academy, and 3.12, eighth lease, amendment, Newport News Schools.
Madam Chairman, I would like to ask that item 3.09, Hampton Road Sanitation District easement, be pulled from the consent agenda and considered separately because I have a conflict of interest in that HRSD is a client of my firm, Jones, Blackman, Walton, Kelly, which is located at 701 Town Center Drive, Suite 800, Newport News, Virginia 23606. I believe I have to state all of that.
Thank you, Ms. Amon. Appreciate you noting that. So we will approve the consent agenda minus 3.09, and then we'll circle back and we'll do 3.09.
Madam Chair, I second, and when we have to approve the motion to restrict 3.09 and then make the motion on.
So we have to, we'll do that, okay. So do we have a motion to restrict 3.09?
I second
I move that
Ms. Amon's
to pull it.
motion.
Okay. Ms. Amon.
You second.
Correct.
Okay.
And so we'll call the roll for that motion.
All right. Dr. Best?
Four.
Mr. Brown?
4.
Mr. Ely?
4.
Mr. Harris?
4.
Mrs. Amon?
4.
Mrs. Searles-Law?
4.
Motion carries 6-0.
Okay. And so now we need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So, Madam Chair, I'll move to approve the consent agenda for items 3.01 through 3.08 and 3.10, 3.11, and 3.12.
A second?
A second.
Okay. Any questions?
And, Madam Chair, I just have one question. On the 8th lease amendment, if Dr. Parker could expand on, certainly it's great adding additional space to the point option program. That's wonderful. We had talked about some other land options this last year in the past in terms of, I believe the South Morrison site we were looking at. Could you just expand for the board why the strategy behind a 10-year agreement for the point option site. Vice, we were considering some other land options.
Yes, sir. So we actually had a lease for the two different spaces for enterprise and point option were on different year terminations. So we wanted to put them on the same termination. Add the space in between because school is starting in 2 weeks and we needed a space. South Morrison would not be ready to house either of those programs at this particular time. And we wanted to engage with the landlord there to ensure that we will be able to transition one of those programs out seamlessly. We can use that space for other things up until that termination date. We do still fully intend to move into South Morrison once that facility is ready to accommodate a larger instructional program, as well as CTE programs eventually. So that is still a plan. We just needed that middle space in between, and while we were making that arrangement, we also needed to probably pull the landlord back to a more reasonable agreement of a 10-year lease. And Mr. Fairheart is here to answer any further questions or expand on that. Did I cover everything okay on that one? Yes, sir. So it was a negotiation to get that done.
Thank you, Dr. Parker.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, let's call the roll.
Okay, I want a clarification. Who seconded the consent agenda without 3.09? Did someone second it? Okay. Okay, Dr. Best?
4.
Mr. Brown?
4.
Mr. Ely?
4.
Mr. Harris?
4.
Mrs. Amon?
4.
Mrs. Searles Law?
4.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. So now we will do approval for 3.09 Hampton Road Sanitation District easement without Ms. Amon joining in. So do we have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move to approve item 3.09 Hampton Road Sanitation District easement.
And a second?
Second.
Any questions? All right, let's call the roll.
Dr. Best?
4.
Mr. Brown?
4.
Mr. Ely?
4.
Mr. Harris?
4.
Mrs. Searles Law?
4.
Motion carries 5-0.
And Mrs. Buffalo, if the record needs to state, I abstained.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. At this time, may I have a motion to approve the superintendent's personnel recommendations?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the superintendent personnel recommendations for Michael Bellamy for Assistant Principal of Operations, Woodside High School, Lisa Egoff for Principal, Menspure High School, Tabitha Evans, Assistant Principal and Achievable Dream Academy, Candace Foster, Assistant Principal, Riverside Elementary School, Catherine Garnett, Assistant Principal, Dutro Elementary School, Tanya Harris, Administrative Assistant, Sedgefield Elementary School, Scott Jenkins, Administrative Assistant, Carver Elementary School, Dr. Lakeisha Parrott, Director, Elementary Leadership, Amanda McCauley, Assistant Principal, Yates Elementary School, Sharon Purnell, Administrative Assistant, Stony Run Elementary School, Dr. Katie Smith, Assistant Principal, Split for Denby Early Childhood and Marshall Early Learning Center, Dr. Jennifer Tyndall, Administrative Assistant for Haddonwood Elementary School, and Vivian Bertullo, Director of Special Education.
I second the motion.
Okay. Any questions? All right, let's call the roll.
Best?
4.
Mr. Brown?
4.
Mr. Ely?
4.
Mr. Harris?
4.
Mrs. Amon?
4.
Mrs. Searles Law?
4.
Motion carries 6-0.
Now, Dr. Parker, can you please share with us who has joined our ranks?
Absolutely. It is always a pleasure to bring on new staff and also see some of our superstars in our division get opportunities for greater leadership. So I will start with introducing Mr. Michael Bellamy as the new Assistant Principal of Operations for Woodside High School. Mr. Bellamy, good to see you. And Mr. Bellamy has a master's degree in education from Averett University and a master of business administration from Strayer University. He has a Bachelor of Arts in Paralegal Studies from Hampton University. Mr. Bellamy currently works as an assistant principal at Crittenden Middle School. He also worked as an administrative assistant at Crittenden Middle School and a CTE lead teacher at Warwick High School. Congratulations, Mr. Bellamy. And do you have any friends or family with you this evening that you'd like to introduce as you introduce yourself to the board?
Yes, sir. First, good evening, Dr. Parker, all members of the board. I'm thankful for the opportunity and look forward to great memories of Woodside High School. With me, I have my beautiful wife, Celie, also my proud principal, Mrs. Smith, and one of my mentors, Mrs. Outland, and also my new family, Woodside, Dr. Nichols and Mrs. Sheehan Smith. And so I'm really, really thankful for everyone. And if I could give a quick shout out to the staff, faculty, and fellow admin at Crittenden Middle School, as well as my supporters in the Newport New School District.
And next, Mrs. Lisa Egoff as the new principal of Mitchell High School. Good evening. Ms. Egoff has a Master of Science in Educational Leadership from Western Governors University and a Bachelor of Science in Biology from Christopher Newport University. She has previously worked as a school improvement specialist with Williamsburg James City County Public Schools, and she also has worked as an assistant principal for 6 years at Dozier Middle School, and currently she is at Heritage High School as the API. Congratulations, Ms. Egoff, and let's go ahead and do some introductions with your friends and family as well.
Sure, I have my parents with me, I have my ride or die bestie with Sanchez, and I got my new squad.
Looking forward to good things from you and your team as well. Next introduction is Tabitha Evans as the new assistant principal for Achievable Dream Academy. Good evening. Ms. Evans has a master's degree in educational leadership and supervision from Old Dominion University. She has a Bachelor of Arts in elementary education from Niagara County Community College. She currently works as a teacher for Suffolk Public Schools, or she's currently working in Suffolk Public Schools. And she also previously worked as a teacher for Hampton Public Schools, Wake County Public Schools, and Marine Joy Charter School in North Carolina. Ms. Evans also has worked as a behavior specialist of culture and climate for Teach for America. So welcome to the Newport News family.
Thank you. I have with me my new school family. They're here to support, and at home I have my loving husband and my children who are my wife. My husband has been very supportive throughout this entire process, and my entire support system with my friends and my family who I call on all the time, and I am just looking forward to learning and growing with this new family in Newport News.
Awesome.
So thank you for having me.
Congratulations. Our next appointee is Candace Foster as the new assistant principal at Riverside Elementary School. Good evening. Ms. Foster has an educational specialist advanced certificate in educational leadership from Old Dominion University, a master's degree of arts from Edinburgh University of Pennsylvania, and a Bachelor of Arts degree from Penn State Erie, the Bayron College. Did I pronounce that correct? She's currently a teacher at Dutch Row Elementary School. She has previously worked for Hampton City Public Schools as well. Congratulations and welcome aboard. And do you have any friends and family joining you this evening?
My husband's Bridget Foster.
Also, congratulations, sir. Our next appointee is Catherine Garnett as the new assistant principal at Dutch Row Elementary School. There you go. Congratulations. Ms. Garnett has a Master of Science degree and Bachelor of Arts degree in Special Education, both from Western Governors University. Ms. Garnett currently works at Sanford Elementary School as a lead special education teacher. Congratulations, and looking forward to your new leadership. How are you this evening?
Great. Thank you for this opportunity.
All right, and do you have any friends and family joining?
I have my husband and my daughter and my Sanford family.
Well, thank you, and we're looking forward to your leadership. Our Our next appointee is Tanya Harris as the newest administrative assistant at Sedgefield Elementary School. Ms. Harris is working on her doctorate of education from Liberty University. She has a Master of Arts degree from Liberty University and a Bachelor of Arts degree from Christopher Newport University. Ms. Harris is currently a teacher at Sedgefield Elementary School. She previously worked as a teacher and science curriculum writer with Petersburg Public Schools. Congratulations, Ms. Harris.
Thank you so much.
All right, and who's joining you this evening?
So first and foremost, hello everyone. I am clearly very excited to be here. I'm trying to keep from crying, but with me I have my mother. I have a lot of people, guys. I have my mother, my sister, my grandmother, some of my greatest friends, extended family, my mentor, some of my best friends, my previous Petersburg family, my current principal.
Wow. So you're going to clear the room when it's time. Awesome. Well, you have enough folks. Let's give her another round of applause. Yeah. And our next appointee is Mr. Scott Jenkins as the new administrative assistant at Carver Elementary School. Jenkins, congratulations. And Mr. Jenkins has a master's degree in educational leadership from Old Dominion University and a Bachelor of Science in early childhood development from East Tennessee State University. Mr. Jenkins currently works as a teacher at Hilton Elementary School. Mr. Jenkins has also worked as a teacher for Suffolk Public Schools as an elementary summer school principal and teacher with Williamsburg James City Schools. He also worked as an interventionist for Norfolk Public Schools and a teacher with Hampton Public. Wow, you've been with everybody. All right, congratulations, Mr. Jenkins. Thanks for staying at Newport News. So who's joining you this evening?
Right, I have my family over here, Casey, my daughter Harper, my daughter Peyton, and then my son Bryson, and then my wonderful principal, Ms. Wells, is here also, of course.
That is awesome. Congratulations. Our next appointee is Dr. Lakeisha Parrott as the new Director of Elementary Leadership. Dr. Parrott has a doctorate in Educational Leadership and Policy Studies from Virginia Polytech and Institute University, a Master of Teacher program in Educational Leadership and Bachelor of English from Regent University. She currently works, she has worked with the Virginia Department of Education as a school quality specialist. Dr. Parrott previously worked as the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion in the Office of the Superintendent for Virginia Beach City Public Schools. She worked as an elementary principal and assistant principal for Gloucester Public Schools and has been a teacher with Sussex County Public Schools. Welcome aboard. We know you've already started, so welcome aboard.
Thank you, Dr. Parker. I brought the entire school leadership team with me. And so I'd like to recognize you this evening. But I also have with me Dr. Parker, my husband, David. And again, just grateful for this opportunity. Look forward to working with the leaders here in Newport News Public Schools. And so just thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, Dr. Herman. And so I'll sit down now.
Well, thank you, Dr. Parrott. We are already blessed with your presence, and thank you for being available this summer to get the work started. Our next appointee is Amanda McCauley, the new assistant principal of Yates Elementary School. Good evening. Ms. McCauley has an EDS in administration from Old Dominion University, her Master of Arts degree in Special Education and Bachelor of Science in Human Development from Virginia Tech. Ms. McCauley works as an administrative assistant currently at Newsom Park Elementary School. She also worked as an administrative assistant for Denby Early Childhood. She previously worked as a teacher for Public School 72 in Brooklyn, New York. She has also worked as a teacher at the elementary and secondary levels at Dooley School at St. Joseph's Villa in Richmond, Lee Davis High School in Mechanicsville, Virginia, and Bryan and Craft Elementary Schools in Hampton, and Bayside Middle and Point of View Elementary Schools in Virginia Beach. Congratulations, Ms. McCauley. And do you have any friends or family joining you this evening?
My lovely family is at home because I have my new partner here, Ms. Ramirez.
Awesome. Congratulations. And our next appointee, we're getting somewhere. We're almost down there. Is Miss Sharon Purnell as the new administrative assistant at Stony Run Elementary School. Good evening.
TJ, and he is wonderful, as you've all heard.
Yeah.
And then a very special thanks to my mother, who graduated with me this past spring at ODU.
Awesome. So let's read a little bit about you here. Ms. Purnell has a Master of Science in Educational degree from Oldham University. That must be recently passed, and a Bachelor of Arts degree from Randolph-Macon College. Ms. Purnell currently works as a STEM teacher for Hampton Public Schools. So welcome to the Newport News family.
Thank you.
All right. And at the last board meeting, we did appoint Dr. Katie Smith as the new assistant principal. She will be a split between Denby Early Childhood and Marshall Early Learning Center. Good evening, ma'am. And Dr. Smith has a doctorate in educational leadership from Liberty University, her master's of education from Cambridge College, and her Bachelor of Arts degree from Christopher Newport University. She currently works as an assistant principal at Churchland Elementary School for Portsmouth Public Schools. Dr. Smith also worked as an elementary school teacher for Newport News in the past, so welcome back. Also, she has worked as a teacher for Matthews County Public Schools. Welcome back, Dr. Smith. And do you have any friends and family joining you this evening?
Yes, thank you so much. It's wonderful to be back home and on this side of the water. I have my amazing partner Brian with me and my son Cameron, and both of these phenomenal women. I have from Marshall, Mrs. Keller. So thank you for being here. They're just... I love them. And then, of course, Mrs. Waxman at Denby. So I'm blessed to be, yes, I'm at opposite ends of the city, but so thankful to be with them. So, thank you.
Well, we appreciate you, and we're so glad to have you back. Yes, ma'am. All right, our next appointee is Dr. Jennifer Tyndall as the new administrative assistant for Hydenwood Elementary School. Awesome. Good evening. And Dr. Tyndall has her doctorate degree, Doctor of Education in Policy, Planning, and Leadership from the College of William & Mary, her master's degree in Library Media and Bachelor of Arts from Longwood University. And Dr. Tyndall currently works as the principal of S.P. Morton Elementary School in Franklin Public Schools. She previously worked as a curriculum specialist, library media specialist, and instructional technology resource teacher for Franklin Public Schools. Additionally, she worked as a principal, assistant principal, and library media specialist for Sussex County Public Schools. Dr. Tyndall, welcome to Newport News. Thank you for joining our team.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm very excited to be on this side of the water and a much larger school division. So,
well, you're going to a great place with a great principal.
Absolutely agree, and I have my principal, Mr. Lieberman, and my assistant principal, Ms. Gibbs, with me here today, supporting me, and they have been phenomenal. At home, I have my parents, who are in Wyoming, and my 18-year-old getting ready to go to college, spending the day at Busch Gardens before she has to go off to college. It's certainly more important than being there. My new school family.
Well, we appreciate you, and welcome to Newport News. And unfortunately, Mrs. Vivian Vitullo will not be able to join us this evening. She was not available, unfortunately, to meet the board this evening. She will be the new director of special education. Ms. Vitullo is currently working on her Doctor of Philosophy in Special Education Research and Advocacy from Virginia Commonwealth University. She has an educational specialist degree in educational leadership and administration from George Washington University. She has a Master of Arts in Education in Special Education from the College of William & Mary and a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology from Christopher Newport University. And what we're really proud of is Ms. Vitullo has spent most of her career in Newport News Public Schools. And she will be definitely a great addition to the special education team in her new capacity as special education director. So we'll get a chance, of course, to meet her in person. But if she is viewing tonight, we wish her well and congratulations. And Madam Chair, that concludes our board appointments.
Great. Well, thank you all for bringing your talents and special skills to us. We're going to move on to our action items for the evening. The next item on the agenda is Section 4. First is 4.01, Rules and Responsibilities Handbook. Dr. Parker.
Yes. And for those appointees, if you have a dinner waiting for you, or if you just have a burning desire to stay for the entire meeting, you are welcome to do that.
Yeah, I didn't last that. There goes everybody.
Wow.
Have a good evening, everyone. So, Madam Chair, we will call up Mr. Ransom to the podium. I appreciate the board's input on the R&R handbook. As soon as he can work his way to the front.
Yeah, he's swimming up the stream.
That purple shirt, he looks big. I met him somewhere.
They're gonna read about like 40 people. What?
Yes.
Like that one.
I'm telling you.
You like that one, right? Get
Yes.
the before that.
That's it.
Put it on the disc.
I'm going. That's it. Because the room is clear.
Mr. Wright, if you know where Mr. Ransom, you can come up to the podium. We'll go ahead and get started with the action items. I'm sorry, Dr. Ransom. Madam Chair, I will say again, I appreciate the board's attention to the R&R handbook, and I also appreciate the board's patience as we looked at some new information coming from not only from the state, but also just revisiting some of our disciplinary procedures. Dr. Ransom has been very diligent in pulling together some information and responding to any inquiries from the board. He's available this evening if you have any questions regarding the R&R handbook, but we ask for the board's approval of the document so we can finalize that and get it to staff and students in an expeditious manner.
Good evening. You all have any questions for me with the handbook?
And I believe the handbook was sent out electronically to the full board.
And the additional attachments as well.
Yes, the additional attachments as well.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Do we have any comments or questions?
I see the green font.
Just for you? Just for you?
It was perfect.
Okay.
So there is one item in the handbook, Madam Chair, that will not be on the approval pathway this evening. But Dr. Mitchell and her team were working on some adjustments to our attendance policies, and there is one item we do need to revisit. We may bring a policy for the board in September. We do not have any policy from the board that addresses a high number of unexcused absences, whether there are any academic implications. So we would like, while some other divisions have a policy that addresses that, we know that chronic absenteeism will be an issue this year, and we need to have a stronger, we feel, we may need a stronger policy to address student attendance in schools to ensure that our attendance is continuing to improve. So with that being said, that is something that we will be working on. We will have some standard language in the handbook at this time that addresses our current attendance policies, but we may want the board to reconsider that policy in September once we have had a chance to look at take a better look at it.
Dr. Park, I have a quick question with that.
Yes, sir.
I know in the past when I was in school, which a long time ago, 2002, if you was caught I'm telling my age. If you was caught outside, a police officer could pick you up and take you back to school. Is that still the case or no?
It depends. It depends on parent involvement. But Dr. Ransom, do you have any? Have you had any?
It does depend. So the students are stopped. If students are out during the school day, they're stopped and they are questioned, and there are follow-ups given to us throughout the day.
So it's no more you get in the car and they take you to school?
Not necessarily. That's not like a standard practice,
Right,
but
okay.
there is communication made back to whether school leadership or to the school.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I have a question just for point of clarification, because I noticed on the excused absences, there's not one for sports, and I know some sports have, for example, golf has, you're out for most of the day of school, because they start at 10 a.m. in random areas around the region. So I didn't know if that was something we were going to look at putting in as or does even exceptional circumstances seems that'd be a little bit of a stretch there.
So I think that when they're on school activities, they're counted as present. So we actually have an attendance code for activities.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And again, we will go back and look at all of our procedures. And I believe that policy is fairly dated. So we're in new times right now where we do have to both chronic absenteeism is 12 absences, whether excused or unexcused, over the course of a semester. However, if a student misses 7 or 8 days unexcused and there's no documentation, at some divisions actually have some consequences for that. And that means that you need to make sure that you are in good attendance, and if you're out of school, it is a documented reason for you being out. But we do need to kind of refresh and look at our procedures now that we're in a time where we need our kids in school coming out of the pandemic, and unfortunately some have picked up some bad habits. But that will not be for the board's decision this evening. I just wanted to share that, Madam Chair, because there was an attachment that was sent in on attendance-related matters that made it to the board's attention.
Madam Chair, I'll just make a comment echoing Mr. Ely's commentary about students being off-school property, because I did actually, I'd spoken with, it was a similar question I had spoken with Dr. Parker about last week, and I have spoken with some police officers in the past, and they've told me that it is not their procedure to bring a student back to school. I know that, like Mr. Ely said, back in our day, I could hear the bell. When the bell rang, you started running if you were close to the school, because the police officers would actually pick you up, if you didn't make it in time, and they might take you to school, or they might take you to the police station, depending on what kind of mood the police officer was in. But they're no longer really doing that. So I bring that up because we'll have a chance to have some conversations with City Council. These are the types of things I think that in partnership with our City Council members, we can open up those discussions about the police helping us with truancy and making sure that we have kids at school during the school day, because a child wandering around the streets is something that we want to try to address if we can, without necessarily having to take a family to court just to get them to not skip school for a day.
And in my neck of the woods in Virginia Beach and Chesapeake, they actually had staff for that. So they were truancy and abatement officers. They were specific officers that served that purpose. I believe a lot of localities have downsized and do not have those personnel on their staff. I'm not aware of any truancy and abatement officers in Newport News as well. So that's probably why you don't have that service being provided. But again, it's worth a discussion. I do believe we need to put some more teeth in our policies to make sure that there is some accountability around attendance, and this is the year to do it, since we know that does factor into our accreditation status.
Any other questions? So speaking of putting teeth in our policies, Dr. Ransom and Dr. Parker, would you just review a little bit about our cell phone policy?
Yes, ma'am. So we took a look at the cell phone policy, and what we've done is we still have our 3 offenses for students. So the first offense, it was originally the cell phone is confiscated, and it's returned back to the student at the end of the day after the expectations are reviewed by an administrator. Now the first offense is the cell phone policy is reviewed, the student receives a warning from the administrator, and the cell phone is not taken from the student. The second offense is the old first offense has become the new second offense. The cell phone is now confiscated by the administrator, but is given back to the student at the end of the day. The third offense is the cell phone is confiscated by the administrator. The student will receive 1 day of in-school suspension. The parents are contacted by the administrator, and the phone is given back to the student at the end of the day. Now, any further offenses, the student will receive any consequence from level 2 to level 4. Additionally, we've added to the expectations of electronic devices. So now we wanted to address the misuse of cell phones when there were rule violations and events being recorded and shared on social media. So we have clarified our stance on that. So you will see that written in there, and we direct families to what our code violation is in our handbook. And then another piece that was always in our handbook was that we do not, students are not permitted to photograph or photograph, video, audio record students without the permission of the other person and permission from a school official. So we definitely made note of that as well.
And those offenses will be handled as cell phone violations. So, so we want to make sure principals are well aware that that will be enforced this year. When a student is pulling out a cell phone or recording other students or recording an incident with the intention of either sharing it or putting it online, that will be a violation of our student code of conduct and will be handled appropriately.
I have a question to clarify.
Dr. Betts?
A question to clarify.
Yes, ma'am.
For step 3, when the phone is confiscated and the student, for offense 3, and the student has to attend 1 day of ISS, is the phone returned after they serve the 1 day of ISS?
So that did receive some discussion. So right now the phone is returned and the student is assigned in-school suspension.
So before?
So it could possibly be before, it could possibly be after, but right now it is written as before.
Thank you.
I just have a couple questions. Are you? Yes. Unless Dr. Best, did you have a follow-up?
No.
I guess I'm curious that we took the parent away and then jumped straight to the in-school suspension. It seems like we kind of basically took out the second level in the sense that the first became a warning, but then it goes to the student, and then you jump. I think it might be appropriate we may want to consider having the parent involvement and then the in-school suspension. But my main question is, we talk about a student in violation shares. I think we would want to have an exception if they shared with school leadership or the authorities, that sort of thing. I wouldn't want a student that if a student received a video from somebody and someone says, hey, look at, but then they realize, they should feel comfortable sharing it with the school authorities or law enforcement or pay. Do you see what I'm saying?
And we did talk about that. We do get a lot of information from student video. That's not our primary, but that's not our intent, is to incorporate student video in our investigations. But in many cases, when a student records something that on school grounds that shouldn't have taken place, an administrator can search the phone or ask the student to cooperate. We don't ask teachers to search phones, collect phones, store phones. I think that's something we should avoid. But it is something that would happen if a student has video. That video could be used at that particular time. Obviously deleted, not placed on, and if it's posted online, then we definitely would use it because it's already out there. But in many cases, we're not encouraging students to record other events and bring that information into to administration, because the goal is to minimize the unauthorized use of cell phones in the school. Regarding the cell phone confiscations, the second offense, the administrator should contact the parent, let them know they have a cell phone violation, or have a means of notifying them in writing. But I believe once the third offense occurs, that parent should be aware that the students already has reached their cell phone violation. So we'll make sure we have
Can we make sure
procedural
that's in the
pieces in
second
place to make sure a
offense?
parent is aware that a student has reached their second incident.
And
I believe parents will be a little pleased that we did not want them to have to leave work in the middle of the day to come to a school to grab a phone. I think if we're communicating with them, letting them know what the policy is and procedures, hopefully they will support us and ensure that they're speaking to their students, because this policy was adjusted with them in mind, and making sure that we are holding students accountable for their behavior, but not having to hold parents accountable for their behavior.
Additionally, in the policy, I do believe it states that that it says shared with other students or on social media. So it was specifically talking about students sharing the information with each other.
It talks about others, so we may want to clarify that sort of in how we implement it.
Noted.
Noted, yep.
Madam Chair, I'll just make a comment and then a question. So I want to thank Dr. Parker and Dr. Ransom for addressing these words, especially in regards to cell phone. These were specific concerns that I had, and I do feel like my concerns were addressed very well here, especially the part about sharing on social media. I do see that in the last 4 years that is really, for me, seems to have ramped up. I'm not saying that all, but there are some times when I've seen some videos and it looks like a fight was staged for social media clout. Students are engaging in various behaviors to gain attention and gain notoriety on social media. And so I think that this is something that we needed to address, and I appreciate that we're addressing it directly in our cell phone use policy, because I think it's important to the extent that we want to promote smart and safe schools. One thing that harms our reputation is when someone is doing something specifically to disparage the reputation of the division, especially recording something that potentially is staged. And the question is, in regards to, this is certainly going to be somewhat of a cultural shift. There was already our culture not to allow cell phone use during the school day, but now this being a point of emphasis, I certainly would appreciate seeing some data on the number of violations, expecting that probably at the beginning of the school year this is going to be a challenge, but then as we get into the first and second 9 weeks, hopefully this will ramp down. So I appreciate seeing some additional data or report on this as the year progresses.
Okay. Are we satisfied?
Yes. So Madam Chair, I'll say to my end, I'm satisfied. One, my major concern was cell phones, and my concerns about cell phones have been addressed. My second concern, which was actually my primary concern, were addressed in the community charges section that was added. I want to appreciate Dr. Parker. You were very specific. Appreciate the specificity that you gave to the community charges, that where we would consider a student to be a safety risk to others in our general population. And we actually listed 1 through 14 here of firearm offense, homicide, felonious bodily wounding, criminal sexual assault, Schedule 1 controlled substance distribution, arson, burglary, etc. That we were very specific in the behaviors that would warrant someone being placed in our alternative education environment, and that student would be automatically placed in that alternative education environment, and then have the ability to go through due process and appeal. So my earlier concern was that the student may be at their home school and then in the process of appealing, and that's a safety risk for us. And so I appreciate that was very specifically addressed there. And I want to say thank you to Dr. Parker and Dr. Ransom for specifically addressing those concerns there.
All right. With that, do we have a motion to approve the handbook?
All right, Madam Chair, I would like to move that the Board approves the Rights 2022-2023 Rights and Responsibilities Handbook.
Second.
Any discussion? Let's call the roll.
Dr. Best.
4.
Mr. Brown.
4.
Mr. Ely.
4.
Mr. Harris.
4.
Mrs. Amon.
4.
Mrs. Searles Law.
4.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is Section 4, Action Items, and it is 4.02, Approval of Master Facilities Plan. So, Dr. Parker?
Yes, ma'am. So we asked at our last meeting in July, we wanted to give cooperative strategies the opportunity to finalize their deliverable, which is a comprehensive communication tool, which is the master planning document that we will use and launch and work with the community on to make future decisions regarding the capital needs of the school division. Mr. Fairhart is available if the board has any questions. I believe that document was delivered to the board, and we are asking for your approval of that master plan. He'd be happy to share next steps once that plan is approved.
Okay. Questions?
I'll just make a comment prior to, I imagine we're going to take a motion now, and I just want to make a comment that Mr. Harris, I appreciate your leadership in this regard. I believe this is essentially a dream come true for yourself, because it's been a number of years. I think since you first came on the board, we've been talking about this, and I'm very glad that we finally are at a point of looking at our master plan and approving it. This is, I believe, long overdue in terms of what our division needs. We have now a roadmap for our future. It will matter, of course, getting the funding to stay on the road, but whether we get the funding or not, we now know where we need to go, and we'll know how far we need to go when we don't necessarily get all the funding that we need. So I appreciate that we are now the division is now in a proactive stance in accordance with what we need for our capital, and I'm looking forward to this really paying off when we pass our capital budget this year. So I'm very excited about having this plan.
All right, do we have approval for the master facilities plan?
So Madam Chair, I move to approve the facility master plan.
Second.
Any discussion? Let's call the roll.
Dr. Best?
4.
Mr. Brown?
4.
Mr. Ely?
4.
Mr. Harris?
4.
Mrs. Amon?
4.
Mrs. Searles Law?
4.
Motion carries 6-0.
And I'd also like to thank Mr. Fairhart for his leadership and the entire team for the meetings that we've attended, making sure that this came to fruition, and we now have a plan for improving our schools, and we will move forward with getting that committee formed. And I think the council, Mr. Fairhart, has given us a deadline of September
16th to enter our 24 CIP into Munis.
Okay, much earlier than we've had in the past. But I will remind everyone, right now our current CIP calls for $0 for this upcoming year. So I'll take the September 16th now that we have a master plan, and we will make sure we fill in the dots for and the zeros for everyone, and get that to the council by the 16th. I will communicate with the board via memo on that submission, since it'll be a little bit before our next board meeting.
And I'd like to also, Dr. Parker, thank your staff and a lot of hard work that you individuals put in. And this product will work, and the reason I was really pushing for it, because it let everyone in the community know that the school division has put our best foot forward. We have made it public to the public that this is not just our desires, but this is our requirements. And when you can present your requirement, then we let the chips fall where they may. But I'm very proud of the school division that we do have a roadmap that citizens can look at. In this age now, someone will say, why is that building 100 years old and no one did anything about it? And everybody look at this roadmap and say, well, the school division put it out there, years ago, that this is what they needed. All right, so that's the reason. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Harris.
Yeah.
And if I can just acknowledge two folks, Scarlett Mento and Wade Beverly. Their teams did a lot of the heavy lifting. Any of the data points that you see in the presentation and in the plan itself came from their teams. Special leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fairhart.
Right, the next item is item 4.03. We have some new and revised policies. Dr. Parker, we will take these individually.
Yes, Mrs. Brooks is available to respond to any questions, and obviously Mr. Wallen is always available. The board has asked for some adjustments and considerations for these policies. So if we're here to assist the board with any questions you may have.
Okay. Questions? All right.
Okay.
Well, I think we will start our approval process.
Thank you. I think that's the first time Ms. Brooks has got up and I said it.
And I'm fine.
Yeah, I know.
All right, so the first one, do we have a motion for IJJA, provision of textbooks to students?
Yes, Madam Chair, I propose adopting policy revision IJJA, provision of textbooks to students.
Okay, do we have a
A
second?
second.
Okay. All right, any questions? Please call the roll.
Best.
4.
Brown.
4.
Ely.
4.
Harris.
4.
Amon.
4.
Searles Law.
4.
Motion carries 6-0.
Okay, and the next one up is IJL, Media Center Materials Revised.
Madam Chair, I propose adopting IJL with additional language that the superintendent would add subject similar to the following. Establish a procedure for 1, identifying all instructional materials with sexually explicit content. 2, ensuring parental notification of any instructional materials with sexually explicit content. 3, permitting parents to review all instructional materials with sexually explicit content. And 4, ensuring alternative instructional materials that do not include sexually explicit content are provided in a non-punitive manner for each student whose parents so request. And I've lifted this language from the legislation that has been recently passed that I believe we'll have to adopt anyways, and I will provide a copy of this to the clerk. But it's adding language similar to in terms of the revision. So I make that motion that we have.
Do I have a second for that motion?
I'll second that. Question, procedural or point of order question. Should we move to consider the motion and then make a motion to amend the motion?
Well, Douglas made the motion. Ms. Searles Law just simply asked about the policy, but Douglas made the motion, so if there's a second to that motion with the amended language, then you can vote on that. If it fails, then you can look to the...
Certainly, if my motion fails, then we would be back to the policy as written.
Yes.
So I'm
But I'll second that.
I'm asking for an amendment to the policy.
So we have a second from Ms. Amon and discussion.
I have a question.
Sure.
What do I need to do to table it until we get the information from the state so we can look at that and then put it side by side?
And so I would, so if I'll respond, I would just argue that we already have the information. The law has been passed.
Mm-hmm.
There is specific guidance from the Virginia Department of Education, which may change because the guidance from the Department of Ed is in draft form at this time. But either way, the law has already passed, and there already is a deadline that we would adopt a policy similar to what I'm proposing before January.
So what I'm just asking, and I can only speak for me, I'm just not as familiar with it. So I would just like a minute to see it, a moment to look at it.
The only question I have is and you're correcting what you're saying, I guess I would ask, why didn't that amendment come from administration, or did it come through the administration? Yeah, the school administration.
School division.
Yes.
Administration.
Yes.
Yeah.
If the law was.
So from the administration, we are just reviewing draft information from the VDOE. We also are waiting for guidance from the VSBA, which is our policy providing body. We actually pay the VSBA to give us recommended policy for approval. So without that information, we don't know if this guidance or suggestions from either body will generate an additional policy or a separate policy. So with that being said, that is why we have not made a recommendation either through the policy committee or a revised draft to make amendments based on the Senate bill that was passed.
Yeah, and it's not the fact that you're not in good standing with the statement, but for me, Madam Chairman, I would rather get the recommendation, from the school division, and this is my first time actually hearing this, so, but it's just for a point of order, you know, I just want to make sure we are in order.
In order, yeah.
To, you know, to move forward. Now, if it's mandatory, then sure, I expect us to come back and make the amendment.
And to my knowledge, it's due by January 1. So yeah, so we will we will make every effort to make sure we are in compliance, as we always do.
Well, I mean, I don't think it'd be an effort. I think it'll be once the law is passed, then we'll make the amendment. You know, if Mr. Brown's motion doesn't pass, or if it does, it does. But if it doesn't, and it, you know, it's law, then we should make sure we set a date to amend it. I mean, bottom line, we have to amend it if that's the case.
I think we'd be really prepared to do it soon because we're having this conversation now.
Okay.
So, any further question before?
I would just like to add, Madam Chair, we're in that sort of middle area where it's been passed, but it has to be adopted by January. So we do want to be prompt. One thing I have, this kind of goes to the underlying motion, but we're looking at them together. I have been impressed with looking at the procedures that underlie the policy. Looks like we're really getting a comprehensive approach to if community members or parents object to materials in the library system. We're going to have a very hopefully smooth, concise process to do so and to have things reviewed, which I'm very pleased by that, and I think that's going to be of great benefit too. But I do think we want to, as soon as anything, be it tonight or as soon as anything's finalized, get those adopted.
Great. Okay, further discussion? So we'll take a vote on the motion that Mr. Brown made.
Yes.
To add additional language at this time.
Yes, it's seconded by Ms. Amon. Best?
Against.
Brown?
For.
Ely?
For.
Harris?
Against.
Amon?
For.
Searles Law?
Against.
We have a tie, so the motion fails.
What happens in that case?
We have to table it and go back.
So we go back to the original motion.
Yeah, go back to the original.
All right. So do we have a motion for the original language? Or as Dr. Best wanted to do is table. We might need guidance on that, but that is definitely an option that we can do at this point. We can table the discussion and bring it back in September.
I make a motion that we table it and bring it back in September.
Okay.
Can I offer a discussion point on that? I don't know how quickly the administration, you were planning to roll out the process for contesting materials, but I think that is an important process to get in front of the public. So if there are concerning materials, they can.
That's a very good comment. The procedure was written, was revised, and as I met with staff to review the initial proposed policy, but the procedure is the procedure we will follow, based on what we currently have in place. We just made adjustments to the procedure for handling a community concern or concern with written material. The procedure can be implemented without the policy.
Okay, I was going to make sure we could do that.
Yeah, that was going to be my comment. Yeah.
And I also, again, I appreciate the board's input on the procedural piece too, because I do believe that it's definitely improved.
I think it's a really good
I do
version.
too.
Of course,
So I wouldn't worry about that if we get, and we do have one concern I think that was outstanding that was reported that needs to go through that process. So that will not slow down the process with this policy adjustment.
So do we need a second to do a table?
Second.
I believe so.
Okay.
Second.
We've got some seconds.
Okay, so
John Ely, second.
this Dr. Best formerly did. She moved to table IJL
Until September.
until September.
IJL till September.
And Mr. Ely, you second.
Yes.
Any more discussion?
I'll just bring up as a procedural concern, if if we don't have if we're presumably waiting because guidance from the VDOE is not finalized at this time. So I'm not sure that September is going to change that picture. And so if we're, so I'm not sure that waiting until September is going to change that picture. I believe that we're essentially in a position of either taking a leadership position, which we moved away from there, to now adopting a policy, and then potentially having to revise the policy in December.
But it would give us a little more time to just review. And it might be that in that discussion with Dr. Parker and leadership, then we could move to be able to adopt and adjust and adopt in September.
And I'd like to say this as well. I'm very happy with the procedure. I think the procedure, we have done a lot of great work has gone into the procedure, and I do believe that the procedure is going to have us where we need to be. But my underlying concern was that the will of the board is the policy, and the board has not explicitly stated what we intend for the superintendent to do regarding sexually explicit material in our media, because that's lacking from the policy itself, and that's my concern there.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Any further discussion? So we will take a vote on tabling.
Table until September. Best.
4.
Brown.
Against?
Ely.
4.
Harris.
4.
Amon.
4.
Searles Law.
4.
Motion carries 5-1.
All right, we will move on to section 5, reports and information. Here we are, 5.01,
Mr.
school ready report.
Did we have
one more policy.
we have one
Oh,
more.
we have one more. I'm all excited about getting us back to school. All right, we do have one more. It is IJK, supplemental materials revised. Do I have a motion to adopt?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'll make this one easy for you. I make a motion to adopt policy IJK, supplemental materials revised.
Second.
Thank you both. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Best.
4.
Brown.
4.
Ely.
4.
Harris.
4.
Amon.
4.
Searles Law.
4.
Motion carries 6-0.
All right, thank you. Now to 5.01, the back to school ready report. Dr. Parker.
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chair, it is time to get back to school, and it is customary for our departments to report out on our progress and readiness for the next school year. So with us, you'll have several of our presenters this evening. It is a fairly extensive report, but as always, it has been customary to ensure that the board has good information on our readiness for the start of school. So we'll go ahead and get that presentation started with human resources, because staffing this year is obviously something that has been in the spotlight. So, Mrs. Farish?
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair, Searles Law, Vice Chair Dr. Best, board members, and Dr. Parker. As we know, and as Dr. Parker has stated, staffing for teachers and bus drivers has been an ongoing challenge for many districts. We had an increase in turnover this year, which increased the number of vacancies to fill for some areas. Keep in mind that instructional allocation numbers will be reassessed once students return, and then we will know true enrollment. Once we have those numbers, this will adjust staffing needs. Also not reflected are bus drivers. For bus drivers, we currently have 12 new 12 new bus drivers in training. Once they have successfully completed training, they will reduce our vacancies from 92 to 80. Accordingly, increasing our percent staff to 75% for bus drivers. Additionally, we are continuing still to give offers. Some of our staffing efforts include social digital media, yard bus signs, retirement solicitations, international recruitment agencies, job fairs, sign-on bonuses, which have been very successful, referral bonuses, incentive pay, military partnerships, and we have been also working to make ourselves more present and stronger in the local events in the community. In closing, I want to say thank you to the Human Resources staff for their continued hard work. At this time, I will answer any questions you may have.
Madam Chair, I have a quick question. Thank you for the update. I just want to make sure I understand the numbers.
Yes, ma'am.
So, for example, if there are the bus drivers, 92 vacancies in 22, and there were 19 hires, there's 92 vacancies after the 19 hires, like there's 92 vacancies remaining?
We still have 92 vacancies current.
But then the 12 will bring that down to 80.
82.
Correct.
Okay, so we hired 230 teachers, but we still have 280 vacancies. It doesn't bring the vacancy down to 50.
Correct. So remember, and what's figured into this also is allocations. So that's the other number that's not up here is allocations. And also remember too, when school closed, we still had open vacancies that carried over in addition to the turnover that happened. So that's also what increased that vacancy.
But I just wanted to make sure I understood how the hires and the vacancies interplay. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
May I ask, just in terms of what we're offering, what is the starting pay for our bus drivers and what's our bonus currently?
The starting pay for bus drivers now is $20.16 an hour, and we do have a $2,000 sign-on bonus that we're offering.
And our starting pay for teachers and our sign-on bonus because we do have a recruitment bonus currently still.
Absolutely. We actually have a few sign-on bonuses for teachers. So first, the entry level with no experience for teachers is the $50,000. And in terms of sign-on bonuses for certain critical areas such as special education, English, math, and for school psychologists, we offer until October a $6,000 sign-on bonus. That has done quite well. We've actually offered 46 hires from that, and outside of that, any other teaching positions are $3,000 sign-on bonus.
And that is through October, the end of October, or to the beginning of October?
So the 6,000 is through the end of October.
To the end of
The
October.
3,000 continues.
Okay, and the 3 continue.
So if I'm a teacher in another division and I'd like to come over, no, it's too late. It's too
It's
late.
too late. It's
Okay.
too late for that. So anyone new to the area or anyone coming into the area military, we've hired on some military spouses, and they have teaching credentials. Yes, we can hire them. Right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. At this time, Nancy Carlson will come with the COVID report.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm going to talk briefly about COVID and where we are for this school year. As you can see, our community level is still at medium. We have 246 cases per 100,000 for Newport News, and we've stayed in the medium range. We've been there for quite some time, and our surrounding areas, with the exception of York County, everyone in our area is also in the medium range. Moving on to COVID. Some of the changes that we're going to talk about, we still, of course, have masks as optional for students and staff. Anyone who chooses to wear a mask may do so. The only exception will be if students or staff develop COVID-like symptoms while they're at work or school. We will ask them to put a mask on, and students will be taken to an isolation room wearing a mask to wait to be picked up by their parents. Some of the changes that the Virginia Department of Health has implemented for contact tracing and COVID. Right now, quarantine is no longer routinely recommended for asymptomatic individuals who are identified as close contacts. And this also, of course, aligns with the most recent guidance from the CDC that just came out. We are still asking individuals who either test positive for COVID or have COVID-like symptoms to stay home for 5 days. On day 6, they can return wearing a well-fitted mask. the change that VDH put in for that is that at or after day 6, an individual who is unwilling or unable to wear a mask may present a negative COVID test and return to work or school without a mask. If they're unable to wear a mask, unwilling to wear a mask, and they do not have a negative COVID test, then we would ask them to stay out for the full 10 days. Another change that, again, VDH and CDC both are aligning on now is that routine contact tracing will not be done on all cases. We will work closely with the Peninsula Health District to decide with the local epidemiologist if we do need to do full contact tracing, if we have a cluster of cases or an outbreak of cases in a classroom, work environment, or in one of our school buildings. Prevention strategies remain the same. The best prevention strategy is to promote vaccinations for everyone. Continue with the physical distancing to the greatest extent possible. We are still offering the Bionex Now at-home test kits to our families and staff. That has went over really well. I just received a shipment today, so we're going to be set for the beginning of school so that anyone who would request to have one will have those available. Of course, ventilation, hand washing, and respiratory etiquette, and staying home if anyone doesn't feel well, and cleaning and disinfection. And then my last slide, briefly addressing monkeypox. These stats are as of yesterday, 190 cases in Virginia. As you can see, the eastern region, we have 28. The mean age is 32, and the under 20 really is, the stats today said that really applies to 18-year-olds. Doesn't affect school-age children at this time. And of course, we will watch it and address it as needed. Any questions? Any comments?
I just have a clarification question. If somebody needs to do the negative test result, I know a lot of families have a number of tests at home. Can they do a home test and take a screenshot of it? Do they have to go to a clinic? How do you?
No, they can do a home test and take a screenshot and send it to the nurse. We did that last year. When students or staff go home with COVID-like symptoms and they test negative, they can return earlier than the 5 days showing the negative test to the nurse or to myself if it's, somebody outside of a school building.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'd like to introduce Mr. Wade Beverly, Executive Director of Plant Services.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Sorry everybody's waiting for Plant Services. Okay, so we are having a record year this year. Plant Services is currently engaged in over 110 projects. That's a lot of projects. They range from flooring to gym replacements to contracted projects to paving. As you can see, HVAC casework at 2 schools. We're still working on solar projects at 3 sites and doing a couple renovation projects. So I'm going to kind of share some of those with you. HVAC replacements, as you know, we're doing 8 ESSER project or ESSER funded projects. BC Charles should come back with bid in 2 weeks. That will go on the list. And Saunders is not an ESSER project. It's on the list because that's a CIP project for this year. So the Gatewood Work Senior Center project is coming along. As you know, with lead times and materials and getting them delivered, there has been some challenges with this summer's workload. Huntington Middle School Cottage, I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. I've got a slide for that. Gym floor refinishing replacements at Woodside and Ella Fitzgerald. Casework replacements at Greenwood and Catherine Johnson are complete. We've done a punch list, and so the great thing is all classrooms have all new fixtures with bottle fills, and the place looks great. Restroom renovations at Deer Park, Sedgefield, and Carver. As you know, that project was kind of put on hold last year. We're doing it this year. Just it's a timing thing. If we can't start and finish it, probably best to move it forward. And Deer Park is done, and we're in the process of doing walkthroughs and punch lists at Sedgefield and Carver. Paving projects, as you know, we do a lot of them every year. One that's kind of been in the limelight is Yates. We're going to be putting in an additional drive out to try to help with traffic congestion there. It's just deadheaded. You know, when parents come in, staff's coming in, buses are coming in. So we're going to try to split that up so it's a smoother flow. Solar installations are in progress at Woodside Heritage, and the Gildersleeve admin solar has been approved. Engineering's done, so we'll be starting. You'll start seeing progress with that back there, and just a bunch of electrical panel replacements, on-demand tankless water heaters, and our continued initiative to save energy. Roof replacements at Rich Neck and McIntosh. They're going well. Rich Neck, if you go in the back of that, you might want to take a four-wheel drive with you. Stormwater upgrades at Rich Neck and McIntosh, and if you go by there, you'll know why we need to do that. So just to share some pictures, this is Hydewood's Gymatorium, and as you can see, the old is on your left and the new is on the right. Major difference. It looks different, brighter. Some summer projects around the division. That's Hydewood's cafeteria ceiling replacement in progress. And in the middle is Debbie High School track resurfacing. We did this one and we did the one at Woodside. And we're going to continue our efforts to get around to all the high schools to get the track as we can get to them and afford to do it. Kiln Creek, that's what the 400 section. A lot of people know it as the Outback Wing. And so here we have the Rich Neck roof replacement in progress. Picture of the new hand wash in the restroom at Deer Park, and that is solar on Catherine Johnson. And the learning cottages at Heritage. Power gets hooked up tomorrow at 1 o'clock. We like kind of, taking all the time we can get. But everything is kind of back on track. The trailers were about a month late getting delivered due to truck driver difficulties, and then we had issues with electrical, and so we've worked all that out, and it appears that everything is going to open on time, and that's great. So electrical will get hooked up tomorrow, cleaning will take place Thursday, furniture will move in Friday, and teachers will walk in hopefully Monday morning. So right on time. And with that being said, is there any questions?
How many trailers is it again?
It is 10 classrooms. Actually, it's 11. It's 9 full classrooms and 2 split in the middle. So it gives them kind of an administrative site, a smaller breakout room, and then 9 full-size classrooms.
And will Huntington, that's where all their classes be taking place at?
No, the 8th grade.
Just 8th grade.
And I think
school leadership is following me, and they're going to speak on the Huntington project, I believe. So if there's not any more questions.
Just one thing on Yates. One thing on Yates. I like being transparent. Could you speak to that project? I think we were delayed. Am I correct? The Yates.
Yes, the Yates, due to when we got the funding and everything else, a lot of engineering work's got to be done, surveying work's got to be done. There was just no way to start the project this summer. And so what we're going to try to do is to work it in. If it doesn't have an impact on the parking lot itself, we're going to try to go ahead and get the drive aisle in before winter gets here. And then right after winter, we'll hopefully get the additional section poured and get it in, and then try to open it up if we can spring break. But worst case scenario, it will be completed by summer of next year. But that's our goal right now, is to try to get most of it done and get it in by spring break or close to that.
Thank you.
If there's no more questions, I'd like to introduce Dr. Barnett with school leadership.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the school board, and Dr. Parker. I am extremely excited to share some exciting news about the new happenings at Huntington Middle School. Please. Mr. Wade. Walk away with my clicker. So maybe he's going to, you got it? Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate it. As I stated, I'm extremely excited to share the new happenings at Huntington Middle School for the 2022-23 school year. With the addition of the 8th grade level, Huntington Middle School will now house 6th, 7th, and 8th grades. The addition of several new courses gives Huntington's 8th graders a unique opportunity to earn several high school credits. These new courses include JROTC, French 1, Principles of Business Marketing, and Digital Applications, in addition to the courses already offered, such as Algebra 1, Geometry, and Spanish, giving our Huntington Middle School students a great jump start. With the expansion of the principal's leadership team, student support team, and security team, each grade level at Huntington Middle School will have an assigned assistant principal, professional school counselor, and security officer. Additionally, a student support specialist and family engagement specialist have been assigned to our middle school Viking students to support social and emotional learning, as well as engage families in the academic programs during these critical transition years for our middle level learners. In addition to the expansion to the 3 grade levels at Huntington Middle School, it brought forth the need for additional classroom spaces, as Mr. Beverly shared. In response to the needs, secured learning cottages with 9 classrooms and 2 office spaces have been added. The learning cottages will be equipped with a security swipe card system for entry and exit. And to continue providing a smart and safe learning environment, the security team has been expanded to 9 officers assigned to the Heritage Huntington School campus, with 3 officers dedicated to Huntington Middle School. Finally, Huntington Middle School continues to make family and community outreach a priority. To keep families informed this summer of the new happenings at the school, the Huntington Viking team has participated in the Southeast Community Day, has made a community bus tour with stops at the Boys and Girls Club and Dory Miller, and neighborhood bus stops, have communicated on their websites and social media pages, and hosted Meet Our Team events at local businesses. Also, I'd like to share some information around back to school student schedules, orientations, and open houses for our K through 12 students. As we approach the new year, students and families will be able to access student schedules in Parent View and Student View by Monday, August 22nd. Schedules will also be available for our students at orientations and open houses. Families and students will have the opportunities to meet teachers at our open houses that will take place in our elementary and middle schools on August 25th. Additionally, our Virtual Learning Academy students and families can visit with their teachers on August 24th and 25th, as well as our Point Option students on August 26th. We're so very excited to offer an opportunity for our students transitioning into middle and high school to participate in student orientations. Our middle school orientation for our 6th graders takes place on Thursday, August 25th, and our orientation for our 9th graders takes place on Friday, August 26th. Finally, back to school information can be found on our division's back to school webpage. At that webpage, our families and students can locate registration information, supply lists, open house and orientation information, our school calendars and schedules, bus stop information, and breakfast and lunch menus. This concludes my report. Are there any questions?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I have 2 questions. For the courses, the new courses at Huntington, how is the sign-up looking? Are students taking advantage of it?
Absolutely. Our principal, Mrs. Griffin, shared that news with the then 7th graders, who will now be 8th graders, of the opportunities for the high school credit courses. And so during the sign-up time back in the spring, our 7th graders already knew the schedules that would be offered, the courses, and were able to sign up for those high school credit courses. So all of those courses made, and we're very excited to be able to offer that for them.
Okay, good. And my second question, for the elementary and middle school orientation, I see it's on the same day. What was the thinking kind of behind that?
Yes, our open houses did fall on the same day this year. However, it is a window of about 3 hours, and it is truly an open house format, so families can just kind of flow through schools, meet teachers, and if they have students in other schools, they'll have an opportunity. They'll have chances later in the school year during the first marking period to return to a back to school night format, which is more of a formal program where there's actual presentations by teachers and by the school administration. But during our open houses, it's just an opportunity to flow through and see your teachers, and so you're able to visit more than one school if you need to.
And just one more, I'm kind of asking for teachers.
Sure.
What's kind of the thought to accommodate teachers? Because that was just some of the conversation. When do we go with our child? Teachers that will be at middle school or elementary. Is that some conversation?
Well, oftentimes when teachers have events for their own children, they're able to work it out with their school leadership, so that we always put our teachers as well first for attending events for their own children. And so school leadership at particular schools will work with teachers if they too need to attend open houses for their own children.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you. I have a quick question. Just the French one kind of came to my mind because it's being offered to the 8th graders. Are they going to be able to get a year of French 1 in 8th grade? Is it going to be double blocked for them?
They are able. We do offer French 1 and Spanish 1 to 8th grade students. We also, in Newport News, for our middle schoolers, offer either Spanish 1A that they can begin in 7th grade and then take the second half in 8th grade, Spanish 1B, and the same for French. But the French 1 or Spanish 1 course is a full year course offered to 8th graders.
Okay, and is there a thought, I want to say at some other middle schools that wasn't necessarily available for, say, the French. Is there a thought of maybe giving an option for getting it all in 1 year, depending on how this goes at Huntington?
Yes, well, a lot of times we build a course offering based on the request. And so based on the request, there are enough requests for French to be offered. And so because this will be the first year, it's offered in the 1 year course. And there are a few other schools that may also offer that. We do offer Spanish 1 more frequently in our middle schools, but it depends quite often on the request that students make at that particular school on how we build the courses that are offered at the middle school.
Thank you.
Any further questions? At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Wayne Santos, Executive Director of Technology.
Evening, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, Board, Dr. Parker. Let's see if I can get this going. So real quick, I'd like to highlight some of our technology initiatives as we get ready to roll out and go back to school. Top of the list is the one-to-one device rollout as we continue with the devices, each device for each student. What's new will be our Synergy device integration. With our rollout devices, we look to harden and button up how we do accountability of these devices, and I'll speak to that a little more as we get into the presentation. Our online learning system metrics, what we're doing simply is being to take a look at what top applications students are using during school hours and after hours, so we can get a gauge of what they're using more frequently. Some cybersecurity improvements as well in terms of how we harden up our policies with passwords, MFA, just making sure that we're buttoning up what we're doing from a cybersecurity lens to make sure we're safeguarding data. Our cloud migration, and then our interactive flat panel installation with the ViewSonic flat panels that are going into elementary schools. So one of the key initiatives is our one-to-one device rollout. So I'll just start with kind of July, what we wrapped up. So our summer school device collection, out of the 949 devices issued, we've collected 890. And I'll speak more to those metrics. I'll give you a further breakdown here shortly when we get to the next slide. what we have going on now is how we're going to plan to do our device distribution plan, and this is our tentative schedule that we've put it in front of school leadership so they're tracking. We've let the principals know the date that we plan to roll out these devices so they can anticipate when we'll have TSSs on staff to pull the devices and allocate the resources as needed to ensure that we have the devices to issue on day one of school. You see the high school is the 30th through the 1st. Middle school and elementary will be taking care of the 6th through the 9th. The light blue areas are what's new for us. So as you look at the Synergy device integration, Synergy is not new. The SIS team has been doing that. But the device integration, we're allowing it to use the 1-to-1 plus, which is our device accountability metric, is how we inventory each device. What we've done is built a plugin that allows the 1-to-1 device to speak to Synergy. And what that will do is provide teachers and building administrators access to the device information, so they'll see what devices students have, how many devices students have they been lost, and that's new for us to speak to some of those benefits of Synergy. The plan is to make it part of the withdrawal process. Partnering with the registrars and the TSSs to push alerts via Synergy when they're alerted that a student will be disenrolling from the school. And our end state with going in that direction is hopefully that we can minimize the amount of lost devices, at least from the withdrawal portion. And I'll speak to those statistics. So we've also let the principals know that as well. So not trying to push an additional task to the registers, but partner with our TSSs in the building. That way we can get out in front of losing devices with regard to that. Also, what's new is the cyclic inventory. In the same direction with buttoning up how we do inventory process with 1-to-1 devices. We'll be doing our cyclic inventories, one in December, just to see where we are from a metric perspective, one in March before spring break, and then our final June completion to just make sure we're staying in line with making sure we have accountability for these devices. Of note, our Virtual Learner Academy students, because it's not allocated there for device distribution, they will receive their devices prior to the start of school because they'll need those. So the anticipated days are the 26th and they come back as well. Summer school collection, I just want to highlight these numbers. Big win for us. As of 8 August, so I think it originally ended on the 1st when we looked at the dates, and I think we had raised it 6% from there. So originally I think we were around 87%. We pushed out some letters. We made phone calls for the students that didn't turn in the devices, got it up to close to 94% of the devices that were collected. So a win for us. Of the devices that were missing, majority are returning students to Newport News Public Schools. So what we've done is develop a process where we'll be issuing letters to the parents that are missing the devices, encouraging the students to bring those devices back at the start of school for the refresh, and then also kind of coupling the invoice if they don't plan to bring those back. So I wanted to just kind of key in on those numbers. The next slide is the holistic Chromebook inventory for the end of school year. So that was the end of 22. We collected 92%. Similar to the summer school breakdown, that we have identified the students who did not turn in those devices. So as we do our 1-to-1 rollout, the plan will be to verify or validate that they brought that device back, and the ones who didn't, we're issuing letters to the parents, right, in terms of how we're approaching, how we're hardening up and buttoning our inventory process. So we are pushing device letters to the missing devices. Pending any questions, I'll be followed by Kathy Alexander with Child Nutrition. Mr. Brown.
Yes. One question is, of course, now that we're tightening up our inventory process, and I think this is probably very similar to child nutrition, where there's just, at a certain point, there's a percentage of students or families that we've worked with, but we're not going to get the device back. And so can you speak to, do we have a policy already, or we start thinking about what our procedures are going to be for either recouping the asset or recouping the money for the asset?
So we have invested in insurance for lost and stolen devices. That was something that we anticipated as an intervention. We're very pleased to see that we have high percentages of device turnover and allowing the refresh. But we also understand that at some point you have to be accountable for damaged, just like a textbook. When we gave out textbooks, if you dropped it in the mud or kept losing books or those kind of things, they do accrue some cost. That is the device that's used to access instruction, similar to what a textbook would be. So there will be collection efforts made to that. And with any collection efforts, whenever you run into a family that has some financial constraints, you can do several methods of payment. You can actually set up payment plans. You can do other methods to try to collect some or all of that funding. But that's going to be the challenge moving forward, is to put that level of accountability in place. The insurance is there because we obviously have to cover our losses to make sure that we are being fiscally responsible with our funding. Is there anything I'm missing there?
Yeah, so this will be the first year we actually issue invoices, and the hope for the invoice is really not to have the parent pay for the device, but to encourage them when they see the invoice, to encourage them to have that student return the device. Yeah. So this will be new when that comes in the mail. Then now they know a lot of times from a lack of just a break in the communication channels that maybe they don't even know that that student still has the device at the house, right? So as we look, as we talk about buttoning up that process, part of those processes are us issuing that invoice as well.
Okay. And then that'll go into the My Payments Plus app. They could because they could pay it that way, or is it? Were we doing the regular check in the mail type of?
He said it might not necessarily.
That's a good question. We have
several options.
Check in the mail.
Check in the mail, and
Yes.
then last question, just a logistical one. In terms of like the Find My Phone. Do we have that technology on these devices where it could be a long period of time, right? But eventually say, hey, I know you can't find it, but we can see it's at your house.
Yeah.
Right.
You just bring it.
The battery has to be operational.
Yeah. So we don't have to find the Chromebook device, but we do manage it through the.
You don't? You don't? It's not on?
Well, they're not Apple devices.
I mean,
my phone.
okay.
Yeah. So
right.
but we do manage it, right? So do the Google console. Essentially, if they don't bring it back, then it's a paperweight because they can't use it, right? So it would be off the network. So unfortunately, we don't have that to say we can ping this and this is where this device is, which would be excellent for digital transformation. We're not there yet, right?
Gotcha.
So we would definitely like to move in that direction. It's top of mind. We're just not there at the moment.
Hide in the house.
Yes.
Okay. Any other additional questions?
Mr. Santos, just one question. I think a board member had it for me that I wanted to just make sure you mentioned this publicly. There was a concern that students may be accessing inappropriate sites at home when they're on their own website. Could you speak to that concern?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, because we're issuing all Google Chromebooks, we manage that. We have access control lists in place through the Google Admin Console. So we manage what they can and can't access. So the parameters are in place to prevent them from accessing any type of inappropriate websites, at least to the level of which we can. Right, so we know what you can see. So you can't get to, let's say, a porn site or things of that nature, but you can get to YouTube, and I can't govern if YouTube isn't coded correctly. Right, if it says dance song and then the dance video that you watch is inappropriate, we can't govern that. But there are controls in place that prevent students from going to inappropriate websites.
And just to follow on that, a parent could request block my child from YouTube on this device. Could they make that request if that was something that was a problem for the family?
They could make the request. We'd have to see how we do that and just put we'd have to talk to our team, our information team, to see if we can put a particular access control list out to individual students. I mean, we control a mass list, and YouTube is on it because what we can't govern is, are they using it for educational purposes? See what I mean? So it's kind of how they're tutoring themselves in certain ways. So we could do a deep dive on that, Mr. Brown, and see what it would look like in the event that they want to have a specific website addressed or blocked, and see how do we get to that point. If that answers your question.
Thank you. Yes.
Just to tag on to that, I think you can set YouTube up so you don't get explicit material, but again, if it's indexed wrong, it's indexed wrong.
And it's set up that way, so we don't even have to set it up where it has to block inappropriate because we've already set it up that way. It's just based on the index that it could be inappropriate, where you talk about tying the threads between what's on the actual video and how it's titled. And that's the part that we don't control. Any additional questions?
Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you. Thanks for getting us up to speed.
Thank you. Any questions?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I first want to start talking about our summer meal service that we did this past summer. We served breakfast and lunch at all of our summer learning sites. We served lunch and snack at all of our parks and recreation sites, which included 5 schools and 4 community centers. And these were all open sites, so folks from the children from the community could come and take a meal as well. On January 18th, we were granted the waiver to do grab and go, so we quickly got that up and running. And we launched that at where parents could come and drive by and pick up meals. They did the breakfast and lunch, or lunch and snack, whichever site they went to. And we also implemented 3 bus sites in the community. So what's happening this year? For the last 2 years, due to COVID, we've been serving under summer program, which means all students are free. That will continue because we're under community eligibility provision under the National School Lunch Program. But what happened in summer that's different is that we could just count children with a clicker. Now they're going to have to put their numbers in and run under the National School Lunch Program. So for elementary and middle schools, we are doing a grab and go breakfast where they can come in and go right to the classrooms. They don't have to punch their number in for that. But for all schools for lunch, we'll have to. And then high school meal service, they will come through the line for both breakfast and lunch. And we've encouraged that for breakfast because we saw a large decrease in participation, and we're offering more choices that we can't do in a grab and go. And so all students will have to put in their ID numbers. We are piloting the cards that the kids are going to have to wear in the lanyards. We're piloting that in 2 schools where they come through the line and we just scan it with the scanner. And so we're hoping that will be successful and we can get that up and running soon in all schools. That way the students won't have to, it'll speed up the line service quite a bit. And then we're trying to offer some more choices this year. Last year we didn't offer. We scaled down quite a bit due to COVID, and we were delivering to the classroom and those types of things. So we're hoping to kind of get back to pre-COVID-ness with our meals. Can I answer any questions? Yes.
Thank you so much for your presentation. We get this, I know I do, I'm sure other board members do too, about the food being attractive, the food being tasty. And I know they had the initiative with the government with healthy food. Are we doing anything to make the food more attractable for kids to want to eat it or more tasty? I know sometimes I was talking to one of the cafeteria workers, and they were saying that it's the way the food is pre-packaged or pre-cooked where it may look burnt or may look tasteful. And as a result of that, a lot of time the kids, especially the pizza, the cheese doesn't look like cheese, it looks brown. So have we looked at other vendors or other ways to make the food more attractive?
I mean, we have area supervisors that are out in the schools every day, you know, helping our managers. I mean, I think they do a pretty good job. There are specific examples. You know, we can always check on that. We are implementing our salads again, which we did not do, you know, COVID. We're not doing salad bars again, not yet, but we are doing salads and we're doing more choices. So I think the quality will be a little bit better. We were delivering some meals, which, you know, when you're packing up 400 meals and delivering to classrooms, it's bound to get a little cold, that type of thing. So, but, you know, I encourage everyone to come try school lunch and see what you think.
That's one way to do it. That is.
That's right. So how much latitude do you have in your selections? Like, can you go to another event? I'm just asking, or for the type of funding that we receive, you're limited.
Well, we're limited, and that's a good point. Like what you're saying, maybe like we can't add salt and butter to things. I mean, we're limited nutritionally in what we can do. All of our products are whole grain, so you know that adds a different. That some students aren't used to eating at home, like our hamburger buns and that kind of thing. I mean, I think it's come a long way, but as far as your question, if there's a pizza that is not going well, we certainly can switch to a different kind of pizza.
Mm-hmm.
I just make one comment as board members, or I could just say as an individual, as a board member, I don't get very many compliments in the community. But surprisingly, the one compliment that I have received from many parents and community members is they're very thankful for our lunch program, and have actually thanked me for their child being able to eat breakfast and being able to eat lunch. So I just want to say that that is something that has been very well received by a lot of people. That we have a no-cost lunch for a lot of students, and that's made a big difference for a lot of families. That's actually one thing that parents are thankful to me about. So.
Very much so. Well, you know, I think one good thing would be show what we ate back in 1972. You know, versus what they get now. It's a pretty good deal, you know. Yeah, you get oatmeal and a cheese sandwich, and you know you only weight. So, no, seriously, you guys are doing a great job on that. I remember when we started the program, you know, the free lunch program a couple of years ago. I've heard nothing but great things about it, or whatever the case may be. Because I think at the end of the day, you know, a parent wants you to just have something now available, you know, in case they miss meals at home. And I guess we can, you know, deal with the rest later. But, you know, beats oatmeal every day. You know. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, and I'm happy to introduce Executive Director Shako.
Good evening, Madam Chair Searles Law, Vice Chair Dr. Best, school board members, and Dr. Parker. As you heard earlier from Mrs. Farish, we're still being short on bus drivers. We will begin this school year like we did last year, with some of our routes being much longer and doing planned double backs. Unlike years past, this school year we will mirror our routes to get to the greatest extent possible. This will give students the same driver in the morning and the afternoon, and we'll think that will help with the bus management for those students. We will start the school year with 125 propane school buses out of the 300 total buses that we have, 340 total buses that we have. By the end of the school year, we should be running 142 propane buses with the 17 that we ordered earlier this year when they come in. As for services, this will be our 7th year doing Here Comes the Bus. We encourage our families to take advantage of this free technology to be able to identify where their student bus is located. The app is available on iOS and Android devices and also accessible on the internet. Bus stop information will be made available by the close of business on August 23rd. Families can access bus stop information through a variety of sources to include district website, parent view, student view, and at their respective school open houses. Transportation personnel will be available at school open houses to assist with any questions parents may have. Routes are locked in starting August 22nd. Any bus stop change requests submitted after, if approved, will not be changed until after the first week of school. Child care requests can be made online and at your school. On the district page, families can find a multitude of frequently asked questions to assist them. Bus safety and rules are available on the district website. We ask that parents review this information with their student prior to school starting. We continue to utilize our yellow card system for our pre-K and kindergarten students. For the first day of school, we will allow parents to use their ID to pick up their students, but we'll enforce the use of the card after the first day. And without further delay, on September the 12th, we'll finally start the student ridership program called T-Pass. Student ridership helps us to identify real data for improved planning decisions, provides opportunities for stop consolidation, identifies ridership trends, and provides data for state reporting. T-Pass will allow us to get the right students on the right bus. T-Pass also works in conjunction with Here Comes the Bus app, so it's not an added thing to them. It's another free service, so now you can locate the bus and also whether your student got on or off the bus at the right location. In addition to expanding the car use that Ms. Alexander talked about, this is the car she was talking about, the T-Pass, using in the cafeteria. We're also able to use it in the library. We did a pilot of the program in 5 schools last year, and the principal from Booker T, he was able to use it in the library for kids to check out books. So we're trying to make this not just a transportation solution, but a total school solution for some other things. Parents can go online to review frequently asked questions for more information on the student ridership program. We ask for your patience as we deploy this program throughout the district. That's my briefing. Any questions?
I'll ask what I think is the an obvious question. All right, I lost my T-Pass. It's a first day of school. I already lost.
We ask for parents when a student loses their T-Pass, if they think they lost it, we try to give a couple of days grace so you may be able to find it. So we're printing cards, because all the schools will have the capability of printing cards at their location. Okay. So we give like a 3-day, 72-hour grace period. That student can, in the morning you at a bus stop, we're gonna put you on the bus. In the afternoon, we would like them to have a pass to get onto the bus, so the driver knows, okay, this student belongs on my bus, and get them off at the right stop.
So I can go to the main office.
Yes.
And get another T-Pass.
Correct.
Essentially that day, and then in the morning when I can put my student ID number.
Right. If the driver can plug you in that way also. Okay. Yes.
Oh. So it'd be like a scanning card when they
it's
get on
like
the bus?
so RFID.
Okay.
So
they get
thing
on the
that
bus.
sticks up again, is student just comes very close to it and goes.
And then tying the data together, because of course in terms of absence, I'm a parent, I can see parent view, my child is absent, but here comes the bus, child got on the bus.
Yes.
Can you talk about how do we, or are we thinking about marrying that data together? I know that was something that I used as a parent myself in questioning my child, making the connection. So is there any plans to get that data together, or just use those two different apps?
Automatic attendance.
No, I think we talked about that, how we can evolve the program as we start with the bus, the cafeteria, and the library, how we may be able to use this technology for attendance for schools. So that's something we did throw out there, and just see how far we can get with this program. So it's something that has been thought about, to use that with attendance.
I have two questions. One, thinking about this and how we might use it in other ways, are we thinking about also giving it, say a student doesn't necessarily ride the bus, but they might be able to use it for all these other reasons?
So when we did the first start, we're going to do the program, and the equipment didn't come in last year, but we had all the cards made for all the students in the division. Mm-hmm. So every student during that time frame when we got the cards made last year, they have cards. There will be some kids, because they're new to the school system, they won't have card yet. So everybody that was on that list last year, they all have they will have a card to use. So the card is also, you can use it. It's not germane to Denby High School. It's for everybody. So if you go to another school, you might not be transportation eligible in this school, but you go to the next school, you can use it. And then with the cafeteria, that just kind of enforces to bring everybody needs to have the card so they can go.
It's almost like your student ID.
Right. So you can go. Yeah.
And I guess the other question, as a parent, I got the notice to fill out in Parent View the transportation questionnaire to see if you're going to take. And I was just curious. What kind of response we're seeing to that, versus last year, as far as a greater demand for busing versus last year, but also just to sort of bring it up for anyone that didn't see the message or hasn't checked their Parent View. It might be helpful if they are able to take their students to school with the bus driver shortage. That might be
Right. We got over 10,000 responses, which really surprised. We got that many responses. 10,000 responses with the survey. Where people would go in and say whether they want transportation for to and from, or just to school or from school. So the sponsors they helped us to, when we're looking at sizing buses the right way, kind of get some of those kids off the bus or make sure they're on the bus. So it's just something we tried out as a pilot, and it's something we in the future we would like to go to as we are short resources with drivers. We have the buses, just not the drivers. Looking at people to opt in to transport, say I actually need it, instead of planning for everybody who's actually eligible for transportation.
One more.
Just that. Okay.
For the Here Comes the Bus app,
yes.
If there is a substitute bus driver on another bus, is the technology set up so I would still get the same message? Or
if the driver goes in and puts if they're going to they need to do it before they start the route. Sometimes it happens when we're doing a double back, or I have to split a route in half. And that kid, we got these many kids, it's hard to put in the system. I got 2 different routes on my bus. So if a driver puts in the actual the route number into the system before they start the route, it should do it. If not, the technology just doesn't catch up fast enough to let you know that's the bus.
And I appreciate that, because I can share that now. I can articulate that. Mm-hmm. But I just want to say, transportation last year, summer school, excellent job. I had some special parents that called me like 6 o'clock in the morning when the buses do not come, and I had to deal with your staff. It was okay.
Right.
But they were always very professional, very polite, and gave me the information that I needed. And even though everybody wasn't happy all the time, I was satisfied and happy with the way that they did their job, given the resources that they had. So I just wanted to let you all know I think they're doing a good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, I got one last statement. Have we seen a decrease in the bus bandits passing buses?
No.
With the cameras, have we seen a decrease?
No.
We haven't. So it's actually,
Unfortunately, we have not.
Wow.
And Michelle Price and the
Right.
public affairs at Newport News, they're trying to do a campaign to kind of help us with that.
Wow.
We have some parts on Jefferson. We have a bus stop in Jefferson Avenue that's actually the highest for this event that we use. It's the highest in the country, period. So we've been working with the company, our vendor, and with our city partners to try to get different ways, working with the police department, things we can do to bring down the recidivism of those passings.
So bottom line, we've been lucky that there's been no
correct that nothing's ever happened in our district. So
okay.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
Last question is just going back to the IDs again, which I think it's fantastic that we have this ID that's going to be a kind of universal
Can
ID.
deter behavior. Can't do it.
In terms of our handbook or procedures that we've thought about, what if I'm the student and I lose it every day? So what about I'm just thinking about what the one kid. Okay, you lost it yesterday. You lost it again today. So do we have some procedures in place for disciplining the child? At a certain point after 5 lost cards, we're going to do something.
That's and that's a good question. What's going to happen as this evolves is we'll probably have to put additional procedures in place especially as we expand it.
Right.
Just going to the cafeteria alone is going to create a whole new dynamic for them. What happens to the kid who never comes to the cafeteria with a D card? He or she. We're not going to deny the student a meal, but we have to obviously regulate it in some way. So I think that's a question. I don't know and I don't know if there's what kind of cost is involved in that. But this is initial data. Since we're expanding, this will be first year implementation as we move forward.
Right. Yeah. I think at some point we will have as it expands to other parts of the district, and we'll look back at how many cards did we lose, how many times we replaced cards for students, so we can pull that out of the system to see. And then we have to look at the cost that it takes us. And once the card, we got them for a certain cost, but the cost of making cards keeps on going up. So we have to look at maybe a replacement cost for students who repeatedly lose their card.
But you can't.
Last one in terms of public service announcement, because I think there's a considerable number of parents who contact board members like myself, and they had not planned on. They planned on driving their child to school, but then changed their mind, and then there isn't a bus stop for them. And then we kind of get into a back and forth of them being upset. Can you articulate if it's October and we don't have a stop, what's the time period if we were going to add another stop for?
Traditionally, it's usually you go into the school to put a bus stop request. If it's a stop there, of course they can get on there. But if not, we usually take 72 hours from once you request. We get it and get in the system 72 hours for that bus stop to be activated. Yes,
with the the T-Pass, can you input the number as well though?
The bus driver can input the student's ID number if they tell them they can put.
Because I was that student like Douglas in high school. We had the student ID card, and I lost that ID card probably about like 8 times. The administrator said, "You know what, Mr. Ely? Well, John, no more. You just got to when you go to the at that time in the cafeteria, I input 62553." So would there be an option for that child if they're a repeat offender, they enter 62553? That's the number that they have, and they stick with them because I just can't imagine the school division keep placing cards time after time after time after time again. That'd be very costly.
Well, I mean, one thing we're trying to do is make it a habit. So I know I need it when I get on the bus. I know when I need to eat, and it's going to take, I think, some time within the school division to do that.
How still remember the number 62553? But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Are we good?
Yeah, we're good.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'll be followed by Dr. Manglamart. I think I'm warm up for you. It's all right.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, members of the board, Dr. Parker. I'm actually really excited to be here tonight because this report means that our teachers are back and our students are on the way. And I know that me and actually the whole teaching and learning team, we know that we are just ready to kick this year off. Our focus for this year is really staying the course. We're not going to deviate. We have set the direction for teaching and learning for the past school year, and this year our plan is to continue on this track, polish the skills that we picked up last year, and ensure that we are implementing the vision and mission and teaching and learning framework that ensures student and teacher success. As we look at our plan, we consider the instructional model, teacher capacity, and then really looking at the whole child, the student's mind, body, and soul. In teaching and learning, our focus is on the alignment of the written, taught, and assessed curriculum. While this seems simple, it's actually highly complex, and it requires strategic planning and partnerships with our teachers, with our building principals, with our community, and with our families at home. And due to the complexity, it is important to take a few years to stay that course, not deviate, and not add anything new. And this is overall part of the strategy in and of itself. We are looking at 3 big goals for the C and the I and the A curriculum. We're looking at curriculum enhancements this year, balanced assessment, and learner competency development. This past spring, we had an audit done of our curriculum to better help inform the revision process as we move forward. Through teacher and administrator focus groups and surveys, written curriculum reviews, a deep dive into our assessment alignment, and classroom observation, results of the audit were presented in June. As a division, we are seriously very proud of all the GLOWs that were presented by the audit team and were informed by the GROWs that were offered. We've been busy all June and July creating a strategic plan to enhance the written curriculum. Our overall Year 1 priorities include clarity of language and the alignment of the written, taught, and assessed, create and embed instructional videos, focus on essential question databases, and we want to replace the current curriculum repository. We've developed a balanced assessment calendar as we look to provide our students with learning experiences that expand farther beyond the baseline of state standards. We understand the importance of assessment for learning and assessment of learning. Our assessment calendar includes a variety of types of assessment, including growth, diagnostic measures, predictive measures, student performance measures, and of course, our state summative assessments. Instruction is a huge piece of the curriculum, instruction, and assessment model. We are focused on many things, but I will highlight a few for you today. We have an eagle-eye focus on the profile of a learner competencies. When we built our strategic plan, Journey 2020-25, we also created our profile of a Newport News graduate. We call this our learner profile. We've made a commitment to our students, to our families, and our community to ensure that when our students leave high school, they are prepared for work, for college, and for life. There are 7 characteristics we are focused on through the lens of foundational skills of creativity, collaboration, communication, critical thinking, and citizenship. Through a PK-12 educational journey, our students will become leaders who are emotionally intelligent, resilient, academically strong, equity-minded, innovative in their thinking practices, and reflective by nature. We have begun a 3-phase project. In spring of this year, we completed phase 1. We will finish phase 2 and phase 3 of the Learner Project by the end of the summer of 2023. The ultimate goal of the playbook is to create a toolkit for teachers, and a communication mechanism to all of our stakeholders. Another exciting instructional priority this year is our iSTEM, or the STEM expansion in Newport News. We have begun our first iSTEM resource pilot, where it's a 5th resource that will expand to 8 of our schools this year, and over the next years will expand to all of our elementary schools. The resource addition is strategic in nature because it allows cross-disciplinary application and critical thinking that aligns with the learner competencies, a design to support core content while also giving principals another opportunity to reimagine the elementary schedule in hopes that we can give our teachers a little bit more planning and PLC time. There is a full curriculum for STEM K through 8 that was created, and we have STEM classes at all middle schools this year, and we just updated our STEM lab at Ella Fitzgerald. There is a lot of planning and work also going behind the scenes to help our students gain those work-based learning experiences. We had the expansion of our summer career pathways internships in STEM, library, and driver's education. We had Newport News Public School apprenticeships with our plant services. We also launched our cooperative education that gave us a baseline moving forward. Cooperative education was pre-COVID. It stopped during the pandemic, and we're moving forward with that same project. We have trained social studies and English teams that are providing service learning opportunities to our students. And we trained our JRROTCC instructors on CTE service learning as well. Currently, we are developing a work-based learning data collection to capture our work-based learning experiences for students. When we partner with our business community, we will post those opportunities on one particular website for students to look at, and they can apply right there and bypass all the other hoops of having to go to the counselor and things like that. They can apply right online. We're developing our first apprenticeship model, and we're piloting that this year. And we also have internship expansion to include many more departments and varied durations. We have also expanded our gifted services to all of our elementary schools. So in order to provide equitable services for students, the gifted department is expanding the program model. Beginning in 20 of this year, all elementary schools will have gifted classes for students in grades K through 5. As we transition the division-wide gifted model, the gifted service team will guide principals and staff with curriculum, instructional, and coaching support. A phase-in curriculum integration will be provided for teachers throughout the year. We've also partnered with Averett University to provide reduced tuition costs for their gifted education certification program. Newport News will take on 75% of the tuition cost, and teachers will only have to pay 25% at the reduced price. And lastly, we know that we have a wide variety of magnet programs and specialty programs here for our students, but the most exciting, or the newest, I should say, is our Virtual Learning Academy. We've expanded our enrollment to 484 students this year. We are piloting at the elementary school and have full service in middle school and high school. Currently, we have 217 high school students enrolled, 178 middle school students, and 89 elementary students. The unique part, I think the most unique part about the virtual learning program, different than any other program across the state, it's a hybrid model, meaning that our students are online, but they have that option for blended learning. They can come in once a week to receive one-on-one tutoring, small group intervention and remediation. They have enrichment opportunities, science laboratory experiments, and they can be involved in clubs. A strong professional learning plan we know is key to our student success. So we focused last year on building a 4-year plan. We are in year 2 of this year. The professional learning plan, when you look at all the highlights and things we're going to cover, it aligns with all of our instructional priorities. We have 4 major areas that we're focusing on: the rigorous curriculum, social emotional learning, blended and deeper learning, and culturally responsive inclusive practices. Other opportunities, we've expanded our new teacher model classroom, which we're excited about, and we have professional learning opportunity or communities that are continuing on for this year. We also are having our first mandatory division-wide conference. I know that I just want to give kudos to my team when I looked at them and said that I wanted to have a mandatory conference for 2,500 people. Their faces turned white, but never once did they say no. And they have just, it blew it up. Tomorrow, it begins August 17th and it ends August 18th. And we have a variety of keynotes, we have a variety of sessions. Our sessions are delivered by our own teachers and leaders here in Newport News. We've brought in outside people, outside consultants, and we also have a surprise right around 10:15 tomorrow. We have a comedian, Eddie, I can't remember his last name, but Eddie B. He is coming tomorrow to present to our teachers. A little bit of humor to begin the year. Lastly, we have many different ways that we want to provide supports for our students. Some of the major highlights that we have this year are academic and whole. I've already spoken to the expansion of our gifted services. We also have personalized learning available for our students through FEB tutors, which is an exciting model. Last year it was for at-home support. This year it is high dosage tutoring. They are taking our student data and they are looking at students who need recovery or intervention, and we are going to do small group instruction in the classroom to maximize our learning time. University instructors are also being utilized in a small group model at the elementary school to help our teachers with a push-in model, so they go into the classroom and they support in small group. We also are not practicing, but really honing in on the student support team process. We have all of that built into Synergy to make sure that our SST1, SST2, these processes are all streamlined and they are all documented for our students and communication with our families. Lastly, we have the K-8 SEL curriculum in place. Last year it was at the elementary, this year it's at the middle school. We also have therapeutic day treatment in our schools for our students. We have behavioral support specialists that are now K-12 at all of our schools. Not full-time in every school, but they will be working in the schools with, they will be assigned certain schools. And then lastly, we will have a rigorous attendance plan in place to make sure we have a mechanism for communication with families and making sure that our students find the importance of coming to school. Thank you. That ends my report. Are there any questions?
I have just a quick comment and a question. I really like the work-based learning inventory. It reminds me of almost a college career services type situation where you can go online and see. I mean, that to me is going to really benefit our students as we fill it, and they can go into a counselor or they can look online. So I'm really excited about that. And then I just had a question on the, maybe just to remind me, on the Virtual Learning Academy. If a student is doing like a remote class, but then their other classes are in person, are they counted as one of those students?
No, those are our full-time students. Okay. I actually don't have the numbers on the number of students that are just taking a part-time class.
Yes, Dr. Bess.
For the program with Averett University, is there a target number of teachers that you have a goal for, and are teachers currently enrolled, or will that begin later in the fall or next semester?
Yeah, it begins this fall. I believe we've communicated it. Don't quote me on that one. We've put the communication together. I'm not really sure if it's gone out yet. That's through Dr. Beckerdite, who's running our gifted education program. And I believe there's 10 students per cohort. Okay. All right, thank you
so much.
And this concludes our back to school report for tonight.
Nice job. Okay, moving on. We have the Newport News 5.02 Newport News Public Schools Employee Handbook. Dr. Parker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as Mrs. Farish comes up to the podium, this is not an item for necessarily needing approval. This is basically a new product that we want, a communication tool that that Human Resources has led the work in emphasizing board policy, state code, and best practice, making sure that we have a communicated expectations for employee conduct, performance, professionalism, and obviously just giving them good information and a resource that they could use. So HR has been working on an employee handbook for some time. As the board approves new policy, as state code comes out and new requirements come in place, this information will be updated periodically to reflect those changes. Mrs. Ferris?
Yes. We are happy to announce Newport News Public Schools has an employee handbook. This handbook supports school board policy. The handbook is a communication resource for all staff. The handbook provides provides information on policies, benefits, general information, and direction to assist staff members with questions. Additionally, it will increase staff learning to promote a cultural, responsive environment and sets the stage for expectations of professionalism. The handbook will be communicated to all staff, posted under the Employees link on the NNPS webpage, in Safe Schools, our training software, on the HR webpage, and in the next HR newsletter. As Dr. Parker said, this is a fluid document, so it will be updated on a regular basis. And just as an example of some of the things in the handbook, we have benefits, compensation, conduct, attendance, performance assessment, and COVID protocols, just to name a few things. Any questions?
Any questions? Thank you. Sounds like a
Thank
very
you.
nice addition.
Thank you.
I'll just, one comment is, thank you for pulling together a handbook. I do think it's great to have in most large companies where I've worked at, there's an employee handbook. And it's one thing to have our policies, which are all on the web, but another thing for all employees to have a tailored set that are copies in a handbook that they can reference. So I think as my own experience as an employee, I do find it very helpful to have a specific handbook and be able to reference a set of materials. So I want to thank Dr. Parker and his team for pulling that together.
And we hope this is a very good resource for the board as well as you. Sometimes you do receive constituent concerns. You have an employee handbook, obviously policies where drives many of our decisions, but this is a resource not only for the board, for the employee, but also for you in terms of sometimes addressing employee concerns or guiding them to the right information.
Okay, next on the agenda is 5.03, the construction report. Board members, you've received copies of these reports. Are there any questions? Okay, hearing none, we're going to move on to item 5.04, comments by the superintendent. Dr.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Parker.
Okay, a lot of good information today, and it's been a pleasure spending time with the board, and hopefully you have found some value in many of the reports from staff. I'd like to first start off by thanking our staff for their diligent work over the summer and getting not only being prepared for school, but also being able to communicate the great work that we're doing in terms of preparing for our teachers and our students and our families, who we will be serving moving forward. As our leadership team has shared, our division, school, and operations staff are working diligently, and we are ready for the start of school. Today, our teachers and teacher assistants reported to work to prepare for the new year, and last week we welcomed over 200 new and experienced educators to the Newport News family. Across the school division, schools are hosting welcome events, orientations, and team building activities this week to provide a festive return to for staff. While the real work of preparing for the arrival of students is underway, there's nothing wrong with having a little fun in the process. Congratulations are in order for our summer graduates, the class of 2022. And on August 2nd, over 50 students received their high school diploma during our summer graduation ceremony at Warwick High School. These students put in a lot of hard work over the summer to complete their graduation requirements. Our summer graduates are resilient and demonstrated a commitment to the completion of their studies. We truly enjoyed celebrating with them and wish them well in the future. I'd like to thank all of our students, families, partners, vendors, and sponsors who supported the Southeast Community Summer Celebration on July 30th at Heritage High School. Newport News Public Schools joined Achievable Dream Incorporated, Ivy Baptist Church, and the Southeast Community Coalition in sponsoring this event for the community. In addition to the activity zones, the basketball tournament, the gamer bus, and community resources, students received free school supplies and haircuts. We hope to replicate this successful partnership in other areas of the city in the near future. Events like this really showcase the potential of partnerships between our schools, faith-based organizations, and community supporters. Again, I thank everyone who made this event successful this year. I also want to thank another one of our dedicated partners, Lifehouse Newport News. As part of their For Our City campaign, dozens of their members led beautification projects at 4 schools 2 weeks ago. Volunteers cleaned up grounds, laid over 45 yards of mulch, and used over 30 gallons of paint to spruce up walls and playground blacktops at Carver, Stony Run, Newsom Park, and Deer Park elementary schools. Lifehouse has also donated over 400 back-to-school bags to our students during a back-to-school bash at Todd Stadium. Thank you for your generosity and support. Newport News Public Schools also was awarded recently a Gun Violence Intervention Program community-based grant of nearly $93,000 to support our 2 mentoring programs, My Brother's Keeper and My Sister's Keeper. The grant was presented by the City of Newport News in conjunction with funding from the Virginia Department of Criminal Justice Services and the Attorney General's Office. The goal of the grant program is to interrupt the cycle of violence among high-risk individuals in our community. Congratulations to our Youth Development Department for earning this competitive grant. Just another reminder, the new school year begins on Monday, August 29th. I'm looking forward to a successful school opening, and I wish each of you a productive and rewarding school year, those who are listening this evening. And that concludes my remarks, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, and with that, welcome back to school. Meeting adjourned.